My wife said, "Divorce me if you think you can afford it." I said I already filed. She laughed until her lawyer read the prenup. 2 weeks later, her mother was at my office crying and her friends called me cruel. I kept the receipts. Original post: I'm Mason, 37, from Columbus, Ohio. My wife, Brooke, is 34. We were married for 7 years, together for almost 10. I work as a logistics operations manager for a medical supply company. Brooke worked part-time as an interior stylist, which mostly meant she helped wealthy people pick throw pillows and then came home acting like our townhouse was beneath her. When we first got together, she was funny, sharp, and ambitious. I liked that about her. She could walk into any room and make people notice. Back then, I thought confidence was attractive. Then confidence turned into control. It started small: comments about my shirts, comments about my truck, comments about how my friends were too simple and my family was too loud. Then it became money. My money, mostly. She wanted a different car because her friend Paige drove a newer Lexus. She wanted a lake weekend because her sister had one. She wanted new furniture because her Instagram photos looked tired. I paid for most of it, not because I was weak. Because I thought marriage meant teamwork. That was my mistake. The house was mine before marriage. My grandfather left me $42,000 when he passed, and I used that with my savings to buy a small townhouse in Dublin, just outside Columbus. Brooke signed a prenup before the wedding. Her own attorney reviewed it. The house was separate property. My retirement before marriage was separate property. Any debt in only one person's name stayed with that person. At the time, she joked that prenups were unromantic. Her exact words were, "Fine, protect your precious house." Years later, that precious house became the only reason I slept calmly at night. The breaking point happened on a Thursday in October. I came home around 7:20 after a 14-hour inventory audit. Brooke was in the kitchen with wine, her phone, and that smile she used when she had already decided I was guilty. She asked why I declined the credit card charge. I knew exactly which one. She had tried to put a $6,800 sectional sofa on our joint card. Not discussed. Not planned. Just decided. The card declined because I had lowered the limit after she spent $2,300 the month before on client inspiration pieces that somehow ended up in our living room. I said, "Because we are not buying a $7,000 couch." She said, "You embarrass me." I said, "A couch we cannot afford embarrasses us more." She laughed. Not a normal laugh. A mean one. Then she said, "Maybe I should just divorce you and take half of everything so you can finally understand what I'm worth." I stood there with my work bag still on my shoulder, quiet. She kept going. "Divorce me if you think you can afford it." I set my bag down. I said I already filed. She blinked. For once, Brooke had no line ready. I had filed 3 days earlier. Not out of rage. Not as a stunt. I filed because 2 weeks before that, I found out she had opened a private credit card and listed my income on the application. She had charged $18,400 in 8 months. Clothes, furniture, spa packages. A weekend trip to Nashville she told me was work research. I found the statements because one came to the house by mistake. I did not confront her right away. I made copies. Took photos. Pulled a credit report. Froze my credit. Met with a divorce attorney named Elaine. Paid a $4,000 retainer from my personal savings. Then I filed. Brooke stared at me and said, "You're lying." I said, "You will be served tomorrow." She threw the wine glass at the sink. It shattered. I did not move. She said, "You are going to regret humiliating me." I said, "Maybe, but I will regret staying more." That night I slept in the guest room with the door locked. Brooke paced the hallway until after midnight, fake crying, real texting, whispering into the phone like I could not hear her. At 8:41 the next morning, a process server handed her papers outside her favorite Pilate studio. By 8:49, she called me 17 times. By 9:12, her best friend Paige texted me, "You blindsided your wife in public. That is disgusting." I sent no reply. I was in a meeting. reviewing shipping delays for surgical gloves, while my marriage officially became a group project. Update 1 5 days later, 5 days after Brooke got served, the performance started. First came her mother, Valerie. Valerie had never liked me. She liked what I provided. There is a difference. She liked that I paid for dinners, fixed things around her house, and helped Brooke look stable. But me as a person, not really. She called me Sunday morning and said, "Mason, marriage is not something you throw away because of a few shopping mistakes." I asked if Brooke had told her about the private card. Silence. Then Valerie said, "Women sometimes spend when they feel emotionally neglected." I said, "She listed my income on a card I did not know existed." Valerie said, "That sounds like something married people should discuss." I said, "We are discussing it through attorneys now." She called me cold. I said, "Okay." She called me controlling. I said, "Okay" again. Then she said Brooke would be entitled to half my house. That was when I smiled, not because it was funny, because I had been waiting for someone to say the quiet part out loud. I said, "Valerie, the house is separate property." Brooke signed a prenup with independent counsel. She said prenups get thrown out all the time. I said, "Maybe. That is why we have lawyers." Then I hung up. Brooke moved to her sister's condo for the week, but she came by the townhouse twice. The first time, she used her key while I was at work. My Ring camera caught her entering at 1:13 p.m. and leaving at 2:06 with 2 suitcases, a framed photo, and the espresso machine I bought before we got married. The espresso machine was $1,100. I did not call her. I sent the footage to Elaine. Elaine replied, "Do not engage. Inventory everything," so I did. I walked through the townhouse with my phone and recorded every room, furniture, electronics, tools, kitchen items, even the stupid expensive vases she claimed were investment pieces. I uploaded receipts into a folder. Before marriage, during marriage, joint account, personal account, everything labeled. Brooke was emotional. I became organized. That made her angrier. On day 4, Paige texted again. "Brooke says you are refusing to let her get her belongings. That is abusive." I replied once. She entered the house Monday without notice and removed items. Future pickup times go through attorneys. Then I attached the camera screenshot. Paige did not reply. That night, Brooke posted on Instagram, a black background with white text. "Sometimes the person who promised to protect you becomes the person you need protection from." Her friends commented hearts. "Broken hearts. Praying for you. You deserve peace." My cousin Drew sent me a screenshot and wrote, "Want me to say something?" I wrote back, "No. Let her build the exhibit." That became my rule. Let her build the exhibit. Every text, every post, every voicemail, every dramatic accusation. I saved all of it. On Tuesday, Brooke called my boss. That was new. My boss, Grant, asked me to step into his office after lunch. I thought it was about the audit report. Instead, he closed the door and said, "Your wife called reception and said you were having a mental health crisis." I stared at him. He said, "I figured it was personal, but I need to ask." "Are you okay?" I said, "I am getting divorced. I am okay." "She is angry." Grant nodded slowly. Then he said, "Send HR whatever documentation they need. We will block her calls." I almost laughed from relief. Brooke tried to embarrass me at work. Instead, my workplace protected me. That Friday, I got another surprise. Grant told me the regional director had approved my promotion to senior operations manager. It came with a $12,000 raise and a larger quarterly bonus. I sat in my truck after work and just breathed. My wife was trying to tell everyone I was falling apart. Meanwhile, for the first time in years, my life was moving forward. Update 2. 3 weeks later, Brooke realized the prenup was real. That was when the divorce got ugly. Her attorney, Malcolm, requested temporary spousal support, temporary exclusive use of the townhouse, half the increase in value of the home, half my retirement, attorney fees, and reimbursement for marital lifestyle contributions. I read the email twice. Marital lifestyle contributions apparently meant Brooke decorating my house with money she mostly did not earn. Elaine was calm. Too calm, honestly. She said, "This is standard overreach. Do not panic." Then she sent them the prenup. Not just the prenup. The full package, signed agreement, attorney acknowledgement, Brooke's initials on every page, financial disclosures, email from Brooke's old lawyer saying she understood the house was separate property. Bank records showing my down payment came from inheritance and premarital savings. After that, Brooke stopped posting sad quotes and started posting angry ones. One said, "Paperwork does not erase betrayal." Another said, "Some men plan your destruction years before you know you need protection." Drew texted me again. "Bro, she is making you sound like a villain in a Netflix documentary." I wrote, still not responding. Then came the fake crisis. At 11:30 p.m. on a Wednesday, Valerie called me from a blocked number. I answered because I thought it might be a work emergency. She was crying. "Brooke is in the hospital because of you." My chest went tight for about half a second. Then something in me steadied. I asked which hospital. Valerie said, "That is not the point." I said, "It is if she is actually in the hospital." Valerie started yelling that I had no compassion. I hung up and called Brooke's sister, Kelsey. Kelsey and I were not close, but she was less theatrical than the rest of them. Kelsey answered half asleep and said, "Hospital." She is on my couch eating Thai food. I thanked her and saved the call log. The next morning, Elaine sent Malcolm a note that false medical claims used to pressure direct contact would be documented. Brooke responded by showing up at my gym. I go to a small gym in Worthington at 6 a.m. 3 mornings a week. She hated that gym when we were married, said it smelled like rubber and regret. Suddenly, there she was in matching leggings, standing by the front desk like this was accidental. She said, "Can we please talk like adults?" I said, "Contact Elaine." She stepped in front of me. I said, "Move." She whispered, "You are really going to let lawyers ruin us?" I said, "No, you already did that. Lawyers are just sorting the paperwork." The gym owner, Travis, saw the whole thing. He walked over and asked if everything was okay. Brooke said, "This is my husband. We are talking." Travis looked at me. I said, "We are divorcing. I have asked her not to approach me." He told her to leave. She cried in the parking lot for 6 minutes. I know because my dashcam recorded the audio when I got in my truck. 2 days later, her new story reached my family. My Aunt Sharon called me and said, "Brooke says you hid money and planned to abandon her with debt." I said, "Did she mention the $18,400 card?" Aunt Sharon went quiet. I sent her the statement with account numbers blacked out. Then I sent the prenup summary. Then the ring video. Sharon called back 15 minutes later and said, "I am sorry, I should have asked you first." That one meant something. Because my family had liked Brooke. She was charming at holidays. She brought pretty desserts. She hugged everyone. Nobody saw the way she spoke when the door closed. Eventually, even Malcolm seemed tired. Settlement negotiations began. Brooke wanted $60,000. The Lexus she insisted we lease, half the furniture and me to cover her attorney fees. Elaine countered with $8,000, no support, her personal belongings, her leased Lexus in her name, and each side pays their own attorney. Brooke rejected it. Then Elaine sent the private credit card statements, the false work call record, the hospital lie summary, the gym incident, and the unauthorized entry footage. 2 days later, Brooke came down to $25,000. Elaine told me not to take it. I listened. Final update. 3 months later, 3 months after I said I already filed, the divorce was finalized. Not in a dramatic trial. Not with Brooke giving a speech about betrayal. Not with me losing everything like she promised. We settled in mediation. Brooke got $10,000 from the joint savings, her personal belongings, the bedroom set we bought during the marriage, and responsibility for her own private credit card. I kept the townhouse, my retirement, my truck, my tools, my grandfather's inheritance records, and my sanity. No spousal support, no attorney fees paid by me, no half of my house. When the mediator read the final terms, Brooke looked at me like I had cheated. That was the strangest part. She seemed genuinely offended that I had protected myself from exactly what she tried to do. She said, "You planned this from the beginning." I said, "I planned for fairness." "You planned for leverage." She started crying, quietly this time, not porch crying, not Instagram crying. Tired crying. For 1 second I felt sad for her. Then I remembered the hospital lie, the call to my job, the stolen espresso machine, the posts that made people message me asking if I was dangerous, the $18,400 card. Feeling sad does not mean forgetting facts. After mediation, Brooke's mother waited near the elevator. Valerie looked smaller somehow, less polished. She said, "Mason, she is scared." I said, "So was I." She said, "She does not know how to start over." I said, "Neither did I, but I had to." Valerie looked like she wanted to argue. Then she just nodded and walked away. A week later, Brooke posted one final thing about me. Another black background, healing from someone who used the law as a weapon. I screenshotted it out of habit, then realized I did not need to. The divorce was done. The house was mine. The locks were changed. The joint accounts were closed. The legal exhibit was complete. I deleted the screenshot. That felt better than winning. 2 months after finalization, my life is quiet in ways I did not know I needed. I replaced the espresso machine with a cheaper one that works fine. I sold the bedroom set and bought a simple bed frame. I painted the living room navy because Brooke always said dark walls were depressing. Turns out they look great. I still work too much, but now when I come home, nobody is waiting to audit my existence. Nobody complains about my truck. Nobody turns a declined credit card into a divorce threat. Nobody tells me I am cheap because I refuse to finance a life built for other people's approval. Grant's promotion came through officially. Senior Operations Manager, bigger office, better pay, less chaos. Drew came over last weekend to watch a game and said the townhouse finally looked like me again. I did not know how much I needed to hear that. Brooke moved into an apartment near Kelsey. Paige unfollowed me after apparently learning about the credit card. Kelsey texted once to say, "I hope you are doing okay." I replied, "I am. Hope you are too." That was it. Clean. Adult. Final. The biggest lesson I learned is that divorce does not create problems, it reveals them. The spending was already there. The disrespect was already there. The entitlement was already there. The threat was already there. Divorce just put everything under fluorescent lighting where nobody could pretend it was romantic anymore. Brooke thought saying divorce would make me panic and obey. Instead, I agreed. Because sometimes the most powerful sentence is not "I love you." Sometimes it is "I already filed." If you have faced something similar in marriage or divorce, comment below and tell me your opinion. Did Mason handle it right, or was he too harsh? Please subscribe, like, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it.